Good morning. I want to introduce the book, The Man Who Was Magic, A Fable of Innocence by Paul Gallico. Chapter 1. The stranger, dusty and travel-stained, accompanied by the small mop of a dog at his heels, emerged from the cool darkness of the woods where they had spent the night and paused for a moment in wonder at the first sight of their goal, Magia, the magical city. Perched upon a crag, seen from the valley below, with its stone walls and towers, battlements, spires, and turrets rising above, shining in the early morning sunlight, it gave the impression of an island floating in the sky. Before proceeding up the winding pathway that climbed up to the foot of the great bronze gates, the stranger wondered whether perhaps it was no more than the grandest illusion created by the world's illusionists who lived there. "Look, Mopsy," he said, addressing his dog. "There it is. Do you suppose it's real?" "Well," the dog replied, "as long as we've come this far, why don't we go the rest of the way and find out?" He was one of those small, close-to-the-ground, shaggy affairs, so hairy, in fact, that it was difficult to locate the dog part of him. When one looked, one felt that somewhere beneath the cascade of fringe there was a suspicion of a pair of bright eyes and a black button nose, and sometimes the hint of a pink tongue. But one certainly could not be sure where the body ended and its legs began, or how much of its tail was tail and how much was him. The dog, however, was no ordinary one, for he was able to talk, or at least so the aspiring young magician who was his master claimed, and up to that time no one had ever taken the trouble to prove that he couldn't. "That makes sense," said the stranger. "Come on then, up we go." He was a personable fellow, lean and clean narrow-waisted and wide-shouldered, the very picture of a brave, youthful adventurer. He had short-cropped, curly, copper-red hair and strange, light greenish eyes that almost disappeared in the crinkles at the corners when he smiled. His nose was rather long and humorous, and he went with a wide, friendly mouth. It was the kind of face with which, if one were a nice person, one liked immediately, and if one wasn't, one didn't, and felt rather irritated by its gaiety. But what was most odd about him was that he was clad in the garb of forgotten times. Hose of soft doeskin with a shirt and jerkin of the same material. A cap with a pheasant's tail feather was perched jauntily on the side of his head. His worldly belongings were crammed into a large knapsack hung onto his back, and he had cut himself a thick staff of oak to help him on its way. Into its polished top he had carved his name, Adam. Thus they came to the foot of the magical city of Magia. The smooth bronze gates, 12 feet high, showed not a sign of a handle or a knocker, but over to one side was a round push button with the word "Porter" above it. Adam pressed it. He heard a sliding sound from above, and looking up, saw that a window had opened far up in the door. Peering out was a venerable old gentleman with a long, white beard that fell at least a foot below the sill. He was wearing a rather battered silk hat, and Adam could see he was clad in evening dress as well. In a voice that was as dry as the rustle of autumn leaves, he asked, "Who are you? Where do you come from? And what do you want?" The traveler doffed his cap politely and replied, "My name is Adam. I've come from Glimmer behind the mountain of Strahan. I should like to apply for admission to the Guild of Master Magicians. I was told that this was where I must come." "Ah, yes," said the old man. "Elimination trials going on this morning in the town hall. Finals tomorrow night in the municipal auditorium." He leaned farther out to get a better view of the stranger and said, "Are you one of us?" "Only magicians are allowed in here." "Well, yes, in a way, but I hope to be a famous one someday, like those I've heard about from Magia." "What do you mean, in a way? Are you a magician? Or aren't you? Can you do tricks?" "A few." "What kind?" "Oh, only the very simplest, sir," Adam replied. "Just magic, the ordinary sort. That's why I've come here to try to learn more." The old man said, I've never seen a magician dressed like you before." Mopsy sat down and cocked his head up in the direction of the speaker and said, "Oh, you haven't? That seems to me a very personal remark. What's wrong with his clothes?" "Hush, Mopsy," said Adam. "We must be polite." "What was that you said?" said the old man. "Oh, I was only speaking to my dog. I'm sorry about the clothes, but they're the only ones I have. I suppose I might be able to procure others inside?" "Oh, yes, you'd have to," answered the man. "Uniform requirements, white tie, top hat, and tails, like mine, unless you're one of those Oriental chaps." He was a retired magician whose fingers were now too stiff to allow him to perform, and so he had been given the job of gatekeeper. Then he added, "Did you say you came over the mountains of Strand? That's nonsense. No one has ever crossed them before. It can't be done." "Well, I did," said Adam. The porter now regarded him doubtfully. If you say you did, what's that thing you've got with you?" "It's my talking dog, Mopsy," said Adam. "That's silly," said the old man. "First of all, that bunch of hair doesn't even look like a dog. And secondly, everybody knows that dogs can't talk." "Ha!" cried Mopsy. "Thing? Bunch of hair, is it? What about your chin whiskers, you silly old billy goat?" "Mopsy, do be quiet. He'll never let us in." "What's all that going on between you two down there?" asked the porter. Adam replied, "My dog was just remarking, 'What a very good-looking old gentleman.'" "Was he now? A most observing little animal." And then, with sudden suspicion, "But I didn't hear him say it." Adam smiled. "Well, I did." "Pooh," said Mopsy. "You told a fib." "Well, it's what you ought to have said," Adam replied quickly. "Did he say something again?" asked the gatekeeper. "Oh, he wished you good health and long life." Mused the old man. "Anyone who manages to get over the mountain of Strand and has a dog who can talk must be some kind of magician. Well, you'll need to be a good one, too. Do you know how many passes the judges have? Do you know how many pass the judge in the first test? 1 in 10, maybe. A single slip, and you're out. Novelty is what they're looking for, and originality rather than something complicated." "I'll try my best," Adam said. 8 successful candidates go to the finals," the gatekeeper continued. "And you know how many are selected out of those? 3, chosen by acclamation. The others get the hook." He peered down at Adam once more. "By the way," he said, "I thought there was something missing. Where's your assistant?" "I haven't one, except Mopsy here." "The same, at your service," put in Mopsy, with a slight smirk. "Ho!" scoffed the gatekeeper. "Who ever heard of a dog as a magician's assistant? You'll never get by with that here in Magia. It's one of the rules that every candidate must be accompanied by a female assistant. And don't think the judges haven't got an eye for a pretty face and a good pair of legs, too." "Would it be possible to find one inside your fair city?" Adam asked. "You might," said the porter, "but I doubt it. There won't be many about who aren't either taken up or spoken for, what with all the new applicants. Still, I suppose there's no harm in letting you have a try. You'll have to register with the town clerk." He glanced at his watch. "Entries close sharp at 10. You've got about an hour." "Very well then, mind. You're standing a bit close." Adam had to leap backwards as the double gates opened silently and the porter came down the steps from his office to greet them. His figure was bent and his tailcoat old-fashioned and rusty, but his watery blue eyes were kindly as he said, "Welcome to Magia." And then, as if suddenly smitten once more by doubt, he added, "Are you sure you're a magician? You see, only professional and bona fide ones are allowed in here. I wouldn't want to get into any trouble." "I think so," Adam replied. "Well, that's all right then, and I wish you luck," said the old man. Mopsy was edging closer towards his feet, and Adam heard him mutter, "Bunch of hair and thing, eh?" and was just in time to stop him with, "Mopsy, don't you dare." What?" said the gatekeeper, and then looking down, "He's really a cute fellow, isn't he? I didn't mean to be rude to him. Can he sit up?" "Can you sit up, Mopsy?" Adam asked. Mopsy replied, "I can, but I shan't." What if I asked him to get down on all fours? "He says he can, but he'd rather not," Adam explained. "He says it isn't dignified." Quite so, agreed the porter. How very extraordinary, a genuine talking dog. For by now he was no longer sure whether it was Mopsy or Adam he'd heard say things. "Well, come in, come in." Adam and Mopsy passed through into the city. They were at the end of their very long journey. Immediately they found themselves in such surroundings as they had never seen before. For once within the high wall that encircled the place, the streets of Magia were as merry, gay, gaudy, and sprightly as the most glittering circus parade. And that's the end of chapter 1.